Welcome to the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, a series of educational podcasts that showcase the connection between human capabilities and good work design, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia.
Hello and welcome to this episode of HFE Hub, recorded in the new year of 2025. I'm Kath Jones, the current president of the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia, or HFESA, and today I'm joined by Dr. Stephanie Black, who is a certified HFE professional with HFESA, a chartered manager and fellow of the Institute of Managers and Leaders, Australia and New Zealand, a senior member and certified professional with the Australian Computer Society, and an accredited research manager foundation with the Australian Research Management Society, amongst many other things. Thank you for joining me today, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kath, for the awesome intro and for inviting me to my first ever podcast. I am looking forward to our chat.
I'm very much looking forward to it too. Thanks for joining me, Steph. So perhaps you could start by telling us about your role at the Australian Resources and Energy Employer Association.
Thank you, Kath. So in my role as the Policy and Programs Manager at the Australian Resources and Energy Employer Association, AREEA for short, I lead our programs, initiatives and capabilities in the areas of workforce mental health and wellbeing and diversity, equity and inclusion. My work includes managing areas for advisory boards, the Workforce Wellbeing Advisory Board, the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board, the People and Culture Advisory Board, and the Psychosocial Hazards and Appropriate Behaviours Working Group, which evolved from AREEA's National Resources and Energy Industry Task Force on Workplace Sexual Harassment. My responsibilities further involve overseeing a portfolio of approximately 20 projects across these 4 programs, focusing on enhancing workplace wellbeing and promoting inclusive practices in the resources and energy industry.
Wow, so there's a big portfolio there, Steph. Perhaps you could explain why specifically the energy and resources area would have these particular hazards or focuses on sexual harassment and diversity inclusion.
Well, the resource and energy industry has traditionally been a very strongly male-dominated industry, and that comes with its attendant risks and hazards. And over the last few decades, we've slowly moved up female representation in the workforce, and so these topics are strong focus topics for the industry.
Yes, I can imagine. And I know that AREEA has done a lot of work in trying to engage with stakeholders as an employer body. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So I know with the work with AREEA, they were a finalist in this year's WA Work Health and Safety Excellence Award for the new Mental Health Maturity Assessment tool. And I thought that sounded really interesting. Perhaps you could tell us a bit more about the tool.
Thank you for that prompt, Kath. Absolutely. Designing AREEA's resources and energy industry mental health maturity assessment tool was one of my favorite recent projects and one of my favorite things to talk about, actually. So, as the name implies, the tool is designed to help employers assess and improve the maturity of their mental health strategies and initiatives. The tool is based on AREEA's resources and energy industry mental health framework, created with assistance from the Workforce Wellbeing Advisory Board. The tool evaluates an organization's mental health maturity across 5 stages, from essential to progressive, allowing employers to benchmark their current activities and capacities. It combines a checklist with target-setting features and a log for visualizing year-by-year progress. A notable feature of the tool is the heat map, which visually represents the organization's mental health maturity across a matrix of 60 different areas, helping employers identify strengths and areas for improvement. Additionally, the tool includes a sharing mechanism to facilitate targeted peer learning by matching organizations based on their heat map results. The tool has been endorsed by Lifeline WA and Safer Together, reflecting its credibility in promoting workplace mental health. And whilst we're talking about the tool, I'd quickly like to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone who contributed to its development and success. There isn't enough time to mention everyone individually, but if you're dialed into this, you know who you are. Thank you. Your efforts and support have been invaluable.
It sounds like an enormous project, Steph. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, though. It sounds like you got a lot of feedback. Just can you give me a bit of idea of just how many organisations were involved in the development of the tool?
So primarily, the development was supported by our what was at the time still called the Mental Health Advisory Board, which has recently been renamed to Workforce Wellbeing Advisory Board to signify the broader remit to include general wellbeing now as well. And so the members of this advisory board, they're senior industry professionals, and they've been incredibly supportive in the conception of this tool and, most importantly, the piloting. So they've piloted the tool at their organizations, and their board overall has at any given time around about 12 to 15 members, and a number of days piloted the tool at their organizations and then provided feedback and improvement suggestions. So that was really awesome.
I can imagine. And so you talked about how you've obviously got 5 stages in which you map an organisation's maturity with this new tool. And I was interested particularly in how that heat map is shared with other organisations. Was it based on whether or not they have similar risk profiles, or tell me how that works with sharing heat maps?
Yeah, so basically the problem there was that we didn't want to do this fully automatic programmatically because some members may not want to share, and also some members may not consider whatever the tool figures at their top and bottom topics. They may think, oh yeah, we're across how to do this, we want to focus on something else. And so what we've done is I've put in an option where people can pick their top 3 and bottom 3 items from the heat map. And so, if they want to actually, choose their items 2, 3, and 5, they're free to do that as well. And then there is some space for a probably qualified person to sign off on sharing, so that nobody gets it into their head to share this without checking with the respective responsible person. And once that's done, then they can share it with us. So that way there is a lot of option to be selective and tailor it, and also making sure that it's okay to share. And then once we have someone that matches, complements strengths and weaknesses, then we can match those organizations for peer learning.
I think that's a fantastic initiative. I can see why it was a finalist, because I think where you're getting industry organisations to speak with each other and learn from each other, it's a much more sustainable model, isn't it? Rather than being told by an employer body or even a regulator, this is what you should do. It's great that they can learn from each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think, people have anything against being told what to do, but to really get familiar with it, it helps to immerse yourself a bit more into the subject, and peer learning is really helpful with that.
I wonder, can you tell us a little bit, I don't know how much you'd be able to give in terms of details, but if an organisation was found to be progressive in their mental health maturity, what sort of things would you see in practice? What would a progressively mature organisation look like according to the tool?
So basically these 5 areas, from essential through to progressive, they're looking both at the organization in general and more specifically leaders. So with progressive, mental health and wellness would be an integral part of the workforce strategy, business planning and cultural norms. And it would be considered within every decision the organization makes. Internal and external benchmarking would be undertaken to maintain unrelenting focus and approach. And with regards to leadership, leaders would recognize mental health and wellness as integral in achieving business success and organizational aspirations. And leadership would continually evolve the organization as a mentally healthy workplace and realize the benefits associated with a culture that accepts, supports, and enables its people.
So if a progressive organisation is one that has been monitored, it's a self-assessment tool, how do you account for validity in those scores then, Steph, if organisations are assessing themselves? What sort of matrices are used?
So basically, we've got a 5x3 matrix. So we have the from essential through to progressive on one axis, and we have the tripartite intervention system on the other axis, which is promote, protect, support, which effectively aligns with first, second, and third order interventions. And so on the essential level, we have things, that are really essential. I mean, really basic, effectively, but essential sounds better. So, you have to have a mental health strategy and action plan, policy, leadership commitment, leadership training, consultation, communication, good work design. And you need risk management system, psychosocial hazard incident reporting and response, risk and incident management training, look into specific behavioral and systemic risks, have a return to work, injury management process, review and audit, and an employee assistance program and or other support programs. So that would be essential. And then we slowly ramp up through fundamental, responsive, and proactive. And then on progressive, we'd have more advanced things like mental health research, resources, mindfulness programs, lifestyle programs, social and recreational activities, internal mental health benchmarking, external benchmarking, suicide prevention programs. With that, I should say we have suicide prevention awareness earlier in the matrix, but the full-on program is towards the progressive area. And continuous improvement, access to allied health professionals, resilience and coping programs, and workforce and family care packages. So to clarify, by being in the progressive sector doesn't necessarily mean it's more difficult, but some of the items that are pretty basic, they're actually quite difficult. Like if you don't have a risk management system, even though this is the basic thing you need to look at early on, it would be one of the harder things to create if you don't have it. Whereas some of the more progressive things, they're actually sort of low-hanging fruit. So I sometimes see it that people think, it's a lot easier to provide workforce and family care packages and social and recreational activities than it is to have a proper risk management system in place. So But basically, you wouldn't look at those other things until you have the basics in place. And so that's how we grouped it, not necessarily based on difficulty, but based on what needs to be done first and what's the cherry on top, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is the matrix is based on the resources and energy industry mental health framework, which was created by our advisory board or with support from the advisory board. Effectively, I've inherited this one when I joined AREEA, and so the tool is built around this framework. But we validated it with our advisory board, and most of them are fairly large organizations with good resources, and so they've sanity checked the items on the matrix, and that's given us good feedback. And also with some of the recent changes with new codes of practice, etc. We've juggled a few things around and, for instance, moved work design up earlier into the framework and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. So it sounds like the tool itself was almost like a live document for a while there, and an ability to adapt to the changing regulatory environment as well around psychosocial hazards. Yeah.
Yes,
well done.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're taking feedback on board, and this is constantly evolving. And some of the new features in the updated version, they've been requested by our members. So a live document if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I can understand how that received a finalist approval for the Safety Excellence Award. So congratulations on that. I know as well that
Thanks, Kath.
I'm very impressed. It's a lot of work. I understand you also helped to design a program that won they actually won the 2019 WA Health and Safety Excellence Award for a Best Health and Wellbeing initiative. That was obviously slightly different. Tell us about that particular strategy, the initiative that won the award.
Thanks, Kath. Of course. So as head of health and well-being at a previous employer, I led the project that won the 2019 WA Health and Safety Excellence Award for the Best Workplace Health and Wellbeing Initiative. And this program focused on identifying and addressing psychosocial hazards in the workplace, such as high job demands and interpersonal conflicts, etc., with cognitive demand being identified as the highest rated risk factor in the organization. And the organization was a specialized high-tech services provider with the workers mainly STEM professionals, so maybe not totally surprising that cognitive demand was the highest rated risk factor. Examples of strategies implemented include streamlining procedures, improving knowledge management and training to decrease cognitive demand, and establishing a nap room for employees with sleep issues, and conducting audits and evaluations to ensure ongoing effectiveness and continuous improvement. After implementing these and other strategies, we found all our risk factors, including cognitive demand, had decreased to well below industry benchmark. So that was quite an achievement. And the success of this program emphasized the importance of proactive and evidence-based approaches to workplace health and safety. And my personal favorite, this successful program also highlighted these salience, if you want, of cognitive demand as a significant yet eminently controllable risk factor amongst STEM-based knowledge workers.
I think that was exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about that, Steph, because when you think of cognitive demands, particularly for, a high-tech kind of industry like you were dealing with, you think that this is not a controllable risk factor, that this is something you can't change, and yet you obviously found that there were contributing factors which could be addressed in streamlining the procedures and in taking other actions. Your measurables before and after, what sort of tools did you use to measure the cognitive demand and the changes?
I used the original first version of the People at Work survey, which at the time, so at the time they still included cognitive demand, which has since been taken out because apparently everybody rated really high on cognitive demand, and so they kind of thought it wasn't an identifying factor. Be that as it may, we used that first version that had cognitive demand in it, and we saw high cognitive demand at the start, and it decreased after we implemented our initiatives.
Yeah.
So
congratulations. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think maybe there is a belief that cognitive demand is intrinsically connected just to workload, but workload is such a problematic risk factor in itself, because high workload, low workload, and autonomy will mitigate workload. So I kind of like that you looked at the cognitive demand specifically, because this is very different from physical demand. It's very different from, even though it's mitigated by autonomy, it is still a slightly different factor from workload as a general rule, isn't it?
Absolutely. A big part of it is obviously the underlying expertise of people. So if people aren't well enough trained, then their cognitive demand is going to be higher. Also, if the procedures are not streamlined, then of course there'll be unnecessary complexity. If knowledge that they need to access for their work, obviously not everything is instantly available. Things need to be looked up, and if the knowledge management is subpar, then that adds unnecessary complexity. And also, if the tools used don't work well, or if they change too frequently, that is also an issue. And I think this last item is going to become of increasing importance, because for all accounts and purposes, what I'm hearing from experts is that the speed of change is increasing. Absolutely, which means tools will keep changing. And I mean, even simple things, like every so often my Word software or Excel software or whatever keeps changing. And where before, I had to only click 2 buttons to do something, now I have to click 4 buttons to do something. And this is just a tiny example, but if we're talking specialized scientific software, this adds up if this happens in a lot of places, and suddenly you have 20 things that have changed. And if this keeps happening, like in some proprietary specialist softwares, you get patches every other week. And this adds up to a lot of additional complexity, which does take up cognitive space. So it is an issue. And these are all things that can to some extent be controlled. Like, with the patches, you could, for instance, have a policy that, they have to be rolled together and can only be done every so often. And you can increase training and match it to updates. But it is not easy. So it's not a low-hanging fruit. But I think when it's done well, the payback is immense, because when people have more cognitive free space, more capacity, obviously it's great for well-being, but it also frees up space for innovation and creativity, which effectively improves productivity and, in the end, profits.
Yes, the output changes, doesn't it? It's so interesting, because I remember us speaking about even just a small change, just as we were having a chat a couple of weeks ago about the new Outlook. And how difficult it was for us to get around simple tasks, which became suddenly more complicated. But like you say, and I know you've done a bit of research on multitasking and micro-switching, it adds up, like you say. So cumulatively over a course of a day, I could see how the cognitive load increases with these small, relatively minor-looking changes, which eventually can have a big impact in people's mental health and ability to produce.
Absolutely, it does. And it also tires you quicker. And it's a bit of a feedback loop, I feel, that, it tires you quicker. So that might feed into sleep issues, which then in turn makes people start their workday more tired, which again lowers their cognitive capacity, and this can kind of feed into itself. And that's why we had a nap room, part of the interventions included establishing a nap room so that people affected by this could take a bit of a break. And I actually feel it goes beyond that. I'm a bit passionate on this one because I often hear people say, oh, we have a nap room at work and hardly anyone ever uses it. Can we close this and use it for something else? And I actually feel, I have to admit, I haven't looked up the research on it. This is like just anecdotal evidence. But I feel that just knowing that this is there kind of decreases people's anxiety around insomnia a bit, because they know, hey, if I can't fall asleep easily tonight, it's not the end of the world. If I have trouble tomorrow at work, I can use the nap room. And by that, their anxiety decreases and they actually may have better sleep. As I said, I haven't looked up the research on it, but I feel that there might be some connection.
And certainly it would track with management support. We know management support's a mitigating factor. So if we're getting managers, going to the effort of, installing nap rooms and in fact, encouraging that use and saying, we care about you, we want to make sure you're okay, that management support we know is mitigating to psychosocial harm. So it would certainly track in that respect, even if it's not just knowing there's a room, more knowing that the organisation cares enough about your cognitive load and your capacity to adapt, that they would put this sort of intervention in place, albeit one that might not be used practically every day. It is there, and therefore it tells people and we've talked a little bit about your work, and that was previously at your previous role with winning the 2019 Health and Safety Excellent Awards. And actually from that, you did talk a little bit about changing technologies, and it sort of leads me into thinking about emerging risks in future workplaces. I think obviously we've tapped on one of them, and that is the pace of change and how much cognitive load it takes to adapt to change in the workplace. What are some of the other emerging risks you might see in future workplaces from your research?
Thanks for another excellent question, Kath. Emerging risks in future workplaces stem from technological and societal megatrends, as we just discussed. And in what is Volume 3 of AREEA's People and Culture, Workforces and Workplaces Thought Leadership Series, which is titled Megatrends, significant trends impacting the resources and energy industry were highlighted. So a little bit of a plug for that publication.
That module, well done.
And incidentally, researching for and writing that report was another one of my favorite projects. Discussing future-related topics is also a passion of mine. And as a longtime sci-fi fan, I enjoy reading futurist magazines and predictions for fun. So I could discuss this topic for hours. But I'll try to focus a little bit. So key trends include climate change adaptation and the net zero transition, the fourth industrial revolution. The definition is slightly sliding there. Some people call it the third one, others call it the fifth one, but the major think tanks tend to call it the fourth industrial revolution. The materials revolution, the bio-revolution, increasing uncertainty, and a growing need for trust and governance. Disruptive IT trends affect all industries. These consist of the rise of remote and digital work, increased use of AI, autonomous technologies, advanced process automation, VR, so that's virtual reality, and AR, that is augmented reality, next generation computing, which has nothing to do with Star Trek Next Generation, but it includes things like neuromorphic computing, etc. Then we have enhanced connectivity, so that's things like 5G, Internet of Things, etc. And security architectures against cyber attacks, and the shift from raw to aggregated data. So a lot of disruptive trends. And in Australia, these technological and societal trends, they also will align with demographic changes, especially the aging population. I believe the number of Australians aged 65 and over is expected to roughly double. Those aged 85 and over will triple, and centenarians will increase sixfold. So that's huge. And that overseas migration will also add diversity and replace around 100,000 city dwellers moving to regional areas. So the confluence of all these risks results in significant impacts to the Australian resources and energy industry. For example, the increased demand for specialised technology skills, such as those related to green technologies, synthetic biology, material science and nanotechnology, that is reshaping the workforce. And this shift is accompanied by a decreased demand for low-skilled, routine, on-location jobs, and it is leading to significant changes in workforce composition and job roles. And as another example, workplaces are being upgraded to accommodate new technologies and higher standards, such as zero energy transition technologies, agile production, and higher hygiene and biosafety standards. These upgrades are essential to keep up with technological progress and meet increased sustainability standards, as well as to support a more diverse and aging workforce. But they're all constituting challenges to the way we do things. So there are significant emerging risks ahead for the industry.
It's a lot to take on board, and when you think about just that small thing we were discussing earlier about impact on cognitive demand just for a small change in software, when you start putting in these mega trends like you were talking about, those societal changes with the changing technologies and complexity with the with climate change adaptation, with the fourth industrial revolution. Do we all just panic now, Steph? I mean, how do we get because we're all aging, as you've mentioned, and that is, an undeniable fact that coincides with these changes. What do you think is going to be the key strategies to ensure that we can continue to remain productive in the workforce? I mean, obviously we don't usually see centenarians in the workforce anymore, or even over 85. Perhaps increasingly we will. And so what should we be doing to address this, do you think?
Yeah, so first off, on the aging side of things, I don't think that it's necessarily just a drawback. With age, there comes wisdom and knowledge. Like the negative side of aging is that our fluid intelligence decreases, but at the same time, crystallized intelligence keeps increasing throughout aging, right up till the very end when full-on cognitive decline sets in. So it's not all negative, and I think we need to value these experienced people who had a long professional life and they have seen change. And so, they know what is implied. It just needs to be accelerated. So It's not all bad, I think. And basically acknowledging that there is change, that change is potentially increasing, is already the first step in dealing with it. Yeah. And we just need to face it and focus on the risks and tackle them one by one. And historically, we've had big changes in our century and certainly before that as well. And they haven't eliminated us as civilizations. So I think humans are very adaptable. We just need to acknowledge that there are significant changes. Don't stick our head in the sand and face them head on and adapt.
And using our amazing crystallized intelligence as aging people. I love that. That gives a very positive spin on what is traditionally seen as a negative, like you said. Well, why should it be? There is a lot of adaptability that comes with living through change, right? So I think that's a really positive output.
Absolutely.
I'm really pleased to hear that, because when I chat with people who are sci-fi fans like yourself and futurists and think about, I often sort of delve into the dystopian futures and forget about all those potential positives that can occur. It might be just human nature, but I love that you still see that there's potentials for us to improve with our age.
Yeah, absolutely, Kath. I think there is a huge, it's a big opportunity that we're facing. There's a lot of potential, and who knows, a few decades from now, we might be a lot closer to utopia. We're certainly at some sort of turning point, and we need to use this wisely. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom. We just need to be wise about what we're doing.
Exactly right, yeah. So you've talked about some of the significant challenges that face the workforces in the future for the resources and energy sector, primarily being a lot of that adaptation of new technologies in this fourth industrial revolution. What do you see the role of a human factors and ergonomics professional in shaping better work health and safety outcomes for a start, but also, shaping better cultures in the energy and resources sector specifically?
Certainly, Kath. I think before I go into the role of human factors and ergonomics professionals, I just wanted to add a little bit on regarding the risks and the resulting challenges facing the workforce. I'm working on another volume of our thought leadership series, which is actually entitled Evolution of Work. And so that actually looks more into what all this means for the workforce, which then leads into where human factors professionals are needed. So impacts from the megatrends are expected for the work environment, management styles and culture, information and technology, and talent management and workforce dynamics. And topics around this include flexible work, a focus on holistic health, psychosocial risk factors and sustainability, inclusive leadership and talent management amidst the rise of things like AI and automation. And this leads to some anticipated positive impacts like enhanced employee well-being, innovation, efficiency, productivity, sustainability, potential cost savings, and improved talent attraction if managed correctly. But there are also potential negative impacts, like, for instance, reduced collaboration, asynchronous communication challenges, employee engagement and retention difficulties, upskilling challenges, and security risks. And so to manage these transitions, a number of organizational capabilities are required, like robust performance and change management systems, advanced technology infrastructure, and skilled psychosocial risk management. And also training is required because complementary employee competencies need to be upskilled, including self-management, continuous learning, collaboration, resilience, problem-solving, and ethical awareness. And so all these require a lot of input from skilled personnel. And so I see human factors and ergonomics professionals straight in the middle of all this. Effectively, these roles work to enhance work health and safety outcomes by designing systems and processes that consider both physical and cognitive demands on workers and assess what resources and support are needed to mitigate risks. As part of my PhD research, I explored a human factors topic, namely the impact of multitasking training on situation awareness in technologically complex and safety-critical environments. And as part of that, I conducted an extensive systematic literature review and experiments involving simulations with students and military personnel. And so this was a bit of a mouthful, but basically what I'm trying to say, this research has highlighted for me how as technological complexity and information load exponentially increases and the cognitive demands on individuals increase, our human cognitive capacity remains limited. And there is no easy option to increase situation awareness and related cognitive capacity across job roles. So to generalize from this, it becomes clear that we must recognize the limitations of human cognitive capacity, and therefore we need to invest in policy and expertise to address the related challenges. Notably, we need to invest in good work design to accommodate the increasing job demands, and not by somehow magically trying to make humans all super intelligent, but by adapting work and processes and procedures. And so we need to invest in training to gain the required skills to deal with the increasing demands resulting from this ever more complex work environment. And so I see human factors professionals playing a huge role in this area. They address these issues like job demands, fatigue management, ergonomic design, and human-machine interaction. So their expertise is crucial in developing interventions that not only reduce injury risk and promote workplace well-being, but help optimize workplaces and processes to improve human performance in light of all these changes and this rise in complexity, information load, AI, automation, and so on. So the way I see it, human factors professionals are exquisitely placed to address these changes and make significant contributions to preparing the workforce for future challenges.
Yeah. Oh, great. We're in the right profession then, Steph.
Absolutely. Yes. I think so. I don't think human factors professionals will join the list of jobs that are being phased out anytime soon, Kath. If anything, we're going to need more of them to deal with all these upcoming challenges.
That's a really good note to end on in a way, because it gives us something to work toward. I'm lost for words in a way that we're recording, but it gives us something to work towards as HFE professionals, to know that we will not only be required, but absolutely exquisitely placed, as I love how that's put. Steph, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, particularly such a lovely discussion about not only what you have done, what you're doing now with AREEA, what you have done in your previous role with safety and health excellence, but also in your research and looking toward what it looks like in the future. I could talk with you all day, but given this is just a podcast, I should probably finish off. Any departing words for us before we sign off?
Departing words. Well, I think the future remains really exciting, and this is a really good time to delve further into human factors.
Thanks for joining us at the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia, where human-centred design really matters. If you like this podcast, make us your favourite in your podcast app. We look forward to chatting with you next time.